and give us your testimony.
All right, good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is Scott Peyton, and I'm the Louisiana State Director for Right on Crime. I'm a lifelong resident and worked in Ville Platte for 10 years as a probation and parole officer. I'm here to oppose the policies in HB 9, 10, and 11. As Representative Villio said, all three are interrelated, and they propose to eliminate rather than improve upon key aspects of correctional best practices. For the interest of time, I'm going to focus my testimony now on HB 9. When we look at criminal justice, especially data analysis, the axiom correlation does not imply causation is paramount. Simply identifying a correlation between two factors, such as crime rates or socioeconomic status, doesn't automatically imply a causal relationship. Moreover, drawing these comparisons within the criminal justice system demands an apples to an apples approach, ensuring that similar contexts and variables are accounted for. However, navigating this principle becomes especially challenging when confronted with a diverse array of factors influencing crime and justice outcomes. Much like the 7,500 varieties of apples, the intricacies within criminal justice data underscore the necessity for meticulous examination and nuanced interpretation to discern genuine associations and to make fair comparisons. In both the Louisiana Violent Crime Task Force and the Transition Team on Crime and Public Safety, each of these groups pointed to the need for better data. We need to be able to make informed decisions, especially when it comes to policy of this nature. So what does House Bill 9 do? What I'd like to do first is explain how does someone exit the Louisiana prison system. I provided a handout, which is called Community Supervision, the point of entry. It outlines a lot, and I'm going to reference some of the pages on there just so things are in front of you, so you can kind of see where we are. In 2022, 13,375 individuals were released from DOC custody. And if you look at page 9, it highlights that. And then figure 12 on page 15 is a graph to show that. So you can leave by parole, discretionary parole, which means you have to meet certain criteria, and then the board votes. And if you look at that, only 2.9% of the individuals leaving our prison system in 2022 left under discretionary parole. And this bill would eliminate discretionary parole. So from the surface right here, apples to apples, it looks like this only affects 2.9% of the people. And in 2022, that's what it did. But then when you look at another way to leave our prison system is good time parole supervision. This is automatic. The parole board does not have to make a decision. Once you meet your certain criteria through earning good time release, you're automatically released. Then you move over from the prison system to probation and parole. This group accounted for 85.5% of the releases. So this is a large group of releases. Now, they're not affected per se by House Bill 9 because they're automatic. House Bill 10 would affect their eligibility. And then you have full term. Some people serve the entirety of their sentence. And if you look at that, it was more people served the entirety of their sentence at 7.1% than we had with discretionary parole. And as Representative Villio pointed out, some of the discretionary parole, some that's being left in here, are the violent offenses and were things that have come about in years and years of changes to the parole law. And we'll see that in the booklet I handed you. And then some people die in prison, not as a result of a death penalty, but from natural suicide, homicide. And that accounted for 1.1%. Yes, sir.
Your time is up. I do have a quick comment or question. You indicated initially that that this bill doesn't represent best practices, but the federal system has no parole, does it?
Mr. Morris, I would not imitate anything the federal system is doing, but you are correct. The federal system does not have parole.
I see. But the federal system, when somebody's sentenced in a federal court, they know exactly what's going to happen, don't they? They have a really good idea how long of a sentence they're going to have.
Absolutely,
okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Senator Barrow, I'm going to let him go over for just a minute if you have a question for him, but not long.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mrs. Peyton, for being here. I asked this question of Representative Vilio, and I asked this question of you as it relates to other states that actually does not have parole. Is it the same? Is it equated the same? Is it apples to apples comparison?
Thank you, Senator Barrow, and thank you for bringing up that apples to apples comparison. Being from Ville Platte, no offense, Senator Cloud, I thought there were two kinds of apples, the red and the green. Same way here. If you look at the 16 states, and let me just put this in perspective because the Chairman had a good point. Some of these states, if I say the cities, might be a little more effective. Portland, Oregon, San Francisco, California, Miami, Florida, Phoenix, Arizona. None of those seem like low-crime cities, yet they're part of these 16 states. But I went through each of those 16 states, and yes, there are a few that have no parole. For example, if you look at, I think it's Delaware, Maine has 20 people serving parole supervision. They eliminated parole in 1976. 47 years ago. All of the other 16 states, the most recent one was 27 years ago when they eliminated parole. And so I took those 16 states, I put them in a spreadsheet and compared it to the violent crime rate. The lowest crime rate, according to the FBI data from 2022, is Maine. Maine is one of those 16 states. Maine is also one that has 20 people on parole supervision right now. Their last person eligible for parole was in 2023, and that individual was released, so they're supervising people from a law they made changes in 1947. That's great. They're number one with the lowest violent crime rate. But then we don't get to another one of these 16 states until number 9, which is Virginia. But if you look at the U.S. crime rate, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 states are above the average when it comes to violent crime that have enacted. Basically, they got rid of discretionary parole. When it comes to apples and apples, these other states may have gotten rid of their parole board. They may have eliminated discretionary parole, but they still have parole. They call it post-supervision release. They call it aftercare. There are so many, it will make your head spin when you look through every state. But there are states that still have parole. For example, California is one of these 16 states. They have over 100,000 people on post-supervision release. What the part comes in is Kansas has parole. Minnesota has parole. North Carolina has parole. They still have some version of post-supervision release. But when we look at this bill, and where I didn't get to make my final point, and I understand I'm on a time limit, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate your patience. When we get rid of parole, that last thing, and we leave this option out for those that are on good time automatic. They would be eligible for one of the categories of parole, but when that option's gone, we have 85% of the people that are not going to be eligible for any term of release, and they will be released after 85% with no aftercare. And
Okay,
Yes.
we've gone well over. I appreciate your testimony.